What's up, everybody? Today, we are going analog.
Here we go.
To talk about the way that I see EQ. So let's imagine this whiteboard right here is our sonic palette, the amount that the sound can hold between two speakers. Everything I draw essentially is an instrument or a sound source, and I'm asked to draw two stick figures. And now I'm told, oh, well, let's put a sun in there as well. Let's add in a dog, and oh, well, let's put everybody on a beach. Oh, and birds in the sky. Oh, wait, and an umbrella. Because we've all been here, right? Where artists want to put more and more into their songs because they feel they're not powerful enough, thick enough, and all of a sudden, we're looking at this and our skew is way off. And then we're told, oh, wait. You know, figure one isn't popping out enough. So now we got to figure out a way to get figure one to somehow stand out more in this, and we can see quickly how dense this becomes, how undefined this becomes. And now we might be thinking, oh, well, this is the role of EQ, to be able to shrink these things down and put them properly in frame. So let's say that now we're going to start over. So I'm told, draw two stick figures, but now I'm prepared. But then I'm told, oh, that's it. Now all of a sudden, my frame is off again, and this looks really small. And sometimes that's the trap that we fall into with EQ tutorials or the way that we think about EQ as this tool that is constantly about cutting frequencies. But see, great engineering isn't about hearing more frequencies or knowing which frequencies to cut. It's about understanding relationships. And the frequency spectrum inside a sound source is just one more set of relationships that we want to understand how to balance. And the way that I've started thinking about the utilization of EQ in my workflow is I feel that 99% of all EQ choices can fall into 5 buckets. And today I'm going to talk to you about those 5 buckets and explain how we don't always need to use all 5 buckets on a sound source or at the same time. And understanding that can help us achieve our mix that perfectly fills out our landscape and matches our vision. So let's hop inside the DAW and let's look at these 5 buckets. Bucket number 1, removing artifacts. The question, what doesn't belong? And the artifacts that we're looking to remove are recording artifacts. Because remember, our ear is smarter than a microphone. A microphone's going to capture everything it hears. Rumble, HVAC, electrical noise. So the first thing that I look to do is deciding what actually doesn't physically belong inside this song, because those are things that could also impact our headroom, especially if we have a lot of low-end rumble. So right here, I have a piano track, 6 microphones. Beautiful piano. Now I can hear that pedal thumping, but yet since this is supposed to really feel like a live piano performance, that's not something I'm going to immediately start wrapping my head around as I got to EQ. But rather what I'll do sometimes is I'll blow the track up a little bit and we can see actually that there was some noise here. I'll highlight this area, I'll pull up an EQ, and if we're looking, we see we have some low rumble, and I'll remove some of that rumble. Situations like this, I don't really want to hear a change because I'm not looking to impact the sonic characteristics of this. I'm actually looking to just remove things that could actually create either a headroom issue or just artifacts that shouldn't be there in the first place. Here's another fast example, and probably an easier one to understand because it's more practical. Let's go to a lead vocal, and I'll pull up a Q4, and I'm going to hit play. And we can see that the meat of the vocal is really starting around 240, but underneath that, I have a lot of rumble, a lot of things that are just actually the microphone not being as smart as us and recording whatever else was going on in the room. Could be an HVAC, it could be the singer tapping on the floor. And for those type of things, for me, I'm going to bring this up and clear out that space to make sure that I'm protecting the things that really do belong in the low end of my mix. Our next bucket is what I consider unflattering characteristics. This has to do more with mic placement than it does things creeping into the recording that shouldn't be there.
She doesn't even go here.
So for something like this, we'll go to a snare drum. This sounds like we're hearing the drum an inch or two off the head of the drum. Typically, that is not a way we are actually listening to a drummer play the drums. What I'm hearing off the bat is some extra resonance and buildup around the shell. when we listen to that area right there, that would not be something that we would immediately be hearing, say, if we were 15, 20 feet away from the drummer watching a band perform normally. Let's take a listen to the song for a second and let's bypass this. You could hear when we take the EQ off, the snare gets a little bit more congested sounding. When you're looking to remove things like bass mud, acoustic boxiness, vocal honk, snare ring, really what we're removing are bad characteristics from the recording, not looking to change the personality of the instrument itself. And that's a very important distinction. We're looking to remove things that are part of the instrument itself from the microphone proximity, but not actually change the character of the snare drum. So you notice that the EQ move I did didn't change the snare drum's characteristic, but rather we got some unflattering resonance out of the way. Before you even reach for an EQ, I would say actually go to the fader first. When we move a fader, we are pushing up and down the entire frequency spectrum. And sometimes because maybe we have that snare drum mic, right on top of the snare drum, or the vocalist is right on top of the microphone, pushing that fader up can only create more problems, or pulling it down makes it disappear because we're actually removing those frequencies because they're the loudest frequencies that are represented in the recording, but actually not the frequencies that we really want represented in our mix intention. And it's important to understand the intention. How close to me should these instruments feel? Every instrument has a personality and it has bad habits. That kind of brings us to our third bucket, which is reveal and flatter the identity. What makes this instrument unique?
Well, I'm flattered.
Every instrument has flattering areas that help it kind of pop and stand out. And it's our job in a mix to be able to identify what aspects of the instrument that we really feel are going to be integral to this song. So when we're looking at how to use an EQ to make something feel unique, let's for this one go down to the bass, because the bass has a very interesting tone. It's got that big muff kind of top end fuzz on it, which is really fun. Let's open that up and make sure that we're really kind of letting that speak in the song. It was an intent of the player. And typically, if we're just kind of going by general rules, we're thinking, the bass, boost the lows, and maybe side chain it a kick to make sure it's cutting through. But rather, here, I want to use an EQ to help really highlight the uniqueness of the bass and its tone. And now, let's listen to that in and out of the mix. You can hear how when we put it in, we don't lose anything with the low end, so we still have a nice fullness between the bass and the drums, but now we're getting a little bit more articulation and a little bit more character from the bass. And that, to me, is something, when we're thinking about EQ, that's important to kind of understand. So we don't just go in and we're always told, high pass everything and scoop out the mud, but rather, we're kind of asking ourselves, is there something unique that this instrument is bringing to the mix that helps get my intention to really kind of come to life and pop through these speakers? And how can I use equalization to bring that out? The fourth one is what we call creating space. And I think this is the one that most of us just kind of default to when it comes to EQ, and when we just start kind of cutting everything up. We think, gotta make space, gotta make space, gotta make space. But make space for what? Sometimes there might not be anything extra to make space for. And now we're just cutting all these things out of our instruments and just leaving all this white space in our mix. Sometimes we're not trying to mix everything like that. And truthfully, a lot of what we're hearing nowadays is moving away from that, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I'm sure we all have opinions on it. Let's think about creating space. And we're going to ask ourselves, where does this need to live? Let's also think to ourselves, the human ear and our brain, we can only really kind of conceptualize and process 3 independent sounds at one time. Everything else we chunk. So we want to identify what are our key features here. Like, get away from thinking about EQ as a collection of boosts and cuts and a series of decisions that decides what gets attention. So once we know what gets attention, we want our vocal to get attention. We want the bass guitar to have attention. That doesn't mean that now I want to run to the vocal, pull up an EQ on the vocal, and just start going to work on it. Meaning, like, I'm going to take this vocal, pull the lows off, and just do the high pass because I'm told get everything out, and then pull out the mud, and then sweeten the top. In my opinion, and you may beg to differ, and that's the beauty of what we do, the subjectivity of it, I just detach this vocal entirely from the rest of the song. Yes, it sounds clean. It sounds good in isolation. No proximity, bright top end, no low woof or rumble, but yet I just kind of pushed it further than where everybody else sonically is, which now means I'm going to have to start heading in 2 different directions. I'm going to start bringing everything else to that standard because now I'm going to be like, well, everything else just sounds dull. The vocal doesn't sound right? And now I'm processing. And that's where we start hearing this, your mix feels overhyped or overprocessed. Or I'm going to start going in the opposite direction and just cutting. So what I like to do is if I decide that my vocal is going to be one of my main features, I like to leave that alone and first listen to what it might be right now as we stand that might be fighting the vocal that I might want to create a little space for. Let's say it's the guitar. Fix your ear on the vocal. Ask yourself, when this EQ's in and out, do I feel like I hear the vocal a little better? But yet at the same point in time, we feel the guitar, we know it's there, and we didn't necessarily lose anything from the guitar. Actually, with that cut, I was able to push the guitar a little bit more, and as we mentioned, bring up some of the other areas, the lower mids of the guitar, and push that up, because before, this area right here was kind of really poking through, which kind of dictated its initial fader placement. But let's kind of stay with the whole keeping space thing, and I want to show you something else. I did a little experiment where I popped on an EQ on the vocal that had, a typical kind of boost and cut, an EQ on the bass drum, which is the same thing. Again, we're talking about sweetening, right? That we might typically see. A snare drum that, boosted some kind of snap, did a cut here, and we did some roll-offs. And then with the guitar, low, mid, mud kind of scoop here, cutting the same area I did before, and then doing the same thing we've seen in like tons of how to EQ your guitar videos. And I had those all on, and I created a print. So you could see we have 2 prints here. One labeled individual, other labeled master. And what I did on the master, pulled up an EQ, and before I touched anything, no individual EQs on any track, I asked myself, where do I need to kind of address in this mix as it stands to me right now? And I felt like I had a little bit of boxiness in this area. And then right here, you saw a couple boosts. I did a light shelf, and I'm at like a dB, and here I'm at 2 dB. So that's nothing crazy. Did you hear it and did you catch it? If you did, awesome. If not, I'm going to play it again. Imagine in your mind the area that the bass drum intersects with the shell of the snare drum, and also that area where you get the kind of power of the guitar and the bass. With the master, there's more weight there. The individual one is nice, but the fact that there's only a handful of instruments in this, in my opinion, again, it pulls everything apart too much. They're too sculpted and it feels smaller. Just allowing that stuff to live in the individual tracks, and essentially like if I was listening to, a record and using an EQ on my record player or a car stereo, dialed this mix in, cut down on a ton of processing that I need, and everything feels a little more glued together for me. All 4 buckets so far, right, are about how do we have an intention, how do we move methodically, remove things that shouldn't be there in the first place, look to identify in our mix what our main stars are and what makes them unique. So already we might be thinking in a different way than if we're just going through this like a surgeon, right? Like we're following every other video that just says, here's how you have to make sure you're EQing and, don't be a noob EQing. Here's how you compress. Here's how you do this. And we're just slapping this stuff on a mix and we're not really asking ourselves, where do we need it? And do we need it? Maybe this band wanted it to feel claustrophobic. Maybe they're trying to fit into a scene or they have a vision and they don't want it to sound like they went into the studio and really put some studio magic on it and want it to feel very, raw and dirty. There's so many different genres right now. There's so many different ways people are approaching their music that we can't get hung up in these techniques. We have to know the techniques, but yet at the same point in time, we have to stay faithful to what it is that we're hearing and faithful to a vision. And the last bucket is kind of the fun one, which is what I consider creative sound design. And that is, what story are we trying to tell? The easiest way to think of that is like stage makeup.
Fresh as a daisy.
Where we might take something and really blow it up and take an EQ and mangle it so it pops out in some weird way that really helps it kind of feel like larger than life in a mix. These are things like, say, like phone vocal or an underwater piano or, like a bandpass kind of filter. We've seen those tricks used in production all the time. So say this vocalist was like, I want my vocal to feel like I'm delivering this through, a telephone. We can pop up an EQ and phone it up. Really cool, right? And say it was like, oh, the guitar is supposed to feel like it's underwater. Okay, because we're going full Pink Floyd on this. And maybe they're like, oh, wait, we want it to feel like it's, moving around or something like that. So then we turn and we say, cool, let's like automate this and let's go to the guitar and let's go to this. And we have it ready to automate. And there you go. That is a creative use of EQ, which is essentially to kind of take the geography of what we're talking about and warp it. The moral today is EQ isn't a collection of boosts and cuts, but rather it's a series of decisions about what deserves our attention. And it's not really about EQ being a tool to remove imperfection all the time, but rather a tool to decide which imperfections should survive, because some need to survive in order to make a particular vision come to life. So I hope you found today's video as useful as I do when I begin thinking about these 5 buckets. Because again, the most important thing here is that it's not about hearing more frequencies, it's about hearing better relationships inside our mix and understanding how our choices impact those relationships. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Until then, have fun mixing and see you next time.